Does it ever feel like as you start trying to grow your woodworking business that it seems to kind of suck the joy and the fun and the passion out of what you're doing? If so, you're not alone, and in today's video I want to talk to you about how to grow your woodworking business and keep your joy as you do it. Let's dive in. All right, well, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the podcast as always. I'm so glad that you're here. And in today's video, I hope to encourage you in ways to grow your woodworking business, accomplish what you're trying to accomplish, but also not lose the fun, not lose the joy of what you're doing. And so instead of giving you 3 ways to not lose your joy, I'm gonna give you 3 ways to immediately lose your joy. I'm gonna tell you exactly how to screw this up, and we can kind of look at the counteraction to that as a way to not mess it up, okay? So it's so important though, guys, as you're doing this, you don't want something that is fun, that you enjoy, that you're passionate about. You don't want that thing to become a burden to you. And so here's 3 ways to lose your joy on your journey inside of your woodworking business. And number 1 is to never celebrate the wins. Is to never take time and recognize all the good stuff that's actually happening. For me personally, this is a huge challenge, and so it's actually something that we've incorporated into everything that we do inside of the Woodworking Business Accelerator program with all the guys that are in there. But for me, I've always been very goal-oriented, very driven. With that, I struggle sometimes to stop and see how far I've come. There's a quote, right now you're living in everything you prayed for 5 or 10 years ago. And so it's very easy to forget how far we've come and to celebrate that gap. Where we were a year ago or 2 years ago and where we are today, man, there's a lot to be grateful for. Now, that doesn't mean that we should just settle, but what it does mean is that we should always recognize how far we've come and make sure that our hearts are positioned in a place of gratitude as we're continuing to grow. So number 1, the first way to lose your joy is to never celebrate wins. Never stop and see all the good things that are happening. Continue to just push into the next goal or the next part of your business, and never stop to celebrate the wins or the people or the accomplishments along the way. Here's number 2. The second great way to lose your joy is to completely depend on your woodworking business to fund your entire lifestyle and your family. I would say that in this business, as soon as you make the transition to full-time, it's going to be much more difficult to remain joyful. If you know that your bills are covered or mostly covered through a day job or through a spouse's income or something along those lines, you can take this at a much more manageable pace and much more manageable speed. But the moment that this is the only way that you can afford to eat and afford to pay your mortgage, it's gonna create a lot of volatility in your life. And with a lot of volatility comes a lot of frustrations, misunderstandings, can cause a lot of sleepless nights. And so make no mistake about it, guys, a woodworking business is a difficult business to grow. It's a difficult business to consistently get revenue. One month you might have huge revenue spike, the next you might barely sell anything. It is kind of a feast or famine type business, especially if you don't have consistent marketing channels that you are putting money into and getting a consistent return on that investment. But as soon as you depend fully on the woodworking business to fund your lifestyle and fund your family, it's going to suck some joy out of it. The guys that I've seen that have done the best with woodworking businesses typically have a full-time job and they grow this thing on the side. Or they have a spouse that has a really good income that covers the bills and they feel like they can kind of take some risks and breathe and think more clearly. And so that's number 2. Here's the third way to lose your joy, is to constantly push yourself without actually ever learning anything new in addressing the real issues. I see this happen a lot with guys where they're constantly pushing themselves to sell more, to get better, to do this, to do that, but they're not actually learning more information. They're not actually acquiring any more knowledge. And the problem, and I say this all the time, but the problem between where you are and where you want to be is not a hard work problem. It's not you working more hours. It's not you sweating more and grinding it out. Typically what it is actually just a knowledge problem. And so one of the biggest ways to not have joy is to constantly be pushing for the next endeavor, but not actually learning skills or knowledge. This is what I would say, like if you want to grow a woodworking business, if you want it to become something substantial, you need to constantly be learning, constantly be growing, constantly be adapting. So these are 3 ways to lose your joy. Again, just to recap, never celebrate the wins, depend on your woodworking business completely to fund your lifestyle and your family. And then lastly is never address the real issues inside of your business and never learn as you constantly apply pressure to yourself to get better and to get bigger. It doesn't really work that way. You're not gonna get bigger and better unless your skill set and your knowledge set also gets bigger and gets better. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. Love and appreciate y'all, and I'll see you in the next one.